What's up, y'all? Ryan from Oakland Ghosts, and today we're going to be digging deeper into the ALT synth from Cyma Forma. There was a couple things that I didn't cover, a couple features that I didn't cover in my initial video. I'll link it up here in the corner. If you're not familiar with the ALT, if you don't know what it is, check that video out first because it's going to give you an overview of what it is, how it functions, how it works, and what it does. But today we're going to check out some of the features I didn't cover in that video, like Leon, like the outliner, and Midi, so that you can see how we can pair it up with friends and just some other cool things that you can do with the ALT. The first thing that we're going to take a look at is that actually this synth has light sensors over here, and you can use the ALT basically like a Thermin. In fact, this feature is called Leon. I don't know if you could read that there in the corner. Leon Thermin was the inventor of the Thermin, so obviously inspired by that. And basically what we do is we flick that guy there. We could pick an oscillator or you could make a chord. I'm just going to turn one up. And on one side, this side is controlling the volume or the amplitude, and this side is controlling the pitch. Right? Thermin, yay. Now obviously you can have a multi-voice Thermin. And I believe it does it dependent on what, yeah, it does. So it takes into consideration what frequency you have set. So there you go, there's a Thermin. But here's the thing that I like about it is you can also set these to scale, and that makes it, at least for me, a little more playable. So as an example, let's just have one oscillator again. Pretty dope. In fact, let's just throw a chord in here real quick. Just something kind of nice, right? And now, let's flick Leon back on. I imagine that could actually be pretty cool. I just like that you can quantize it to scale. That's really helpful. I imagine this could actually be maybe useful if you were in a club environment or had some kind of light show, to use that as kind of a modulation source. Might be interesting. I don't know, especially if you're like a noise artist and you're doing like noise type stuff. But in any case, that's Leon. That's the light sensors. I don't know how I'm going to use it yet other than to goof around and play. It feels like it could be fun. Like if you got your patch kind of dialed in, it might be a nice way to just kind of play it almost, I guess. I don't know. The next thing I kind of wanted to go over that I think is probably one of the more important things is the outliner. And the outliner is basically one of the ways that you can sync up other gear with the ALT. All right, so for this example of using the outliner, I'm actually going to be using my speakers and the internal microphone here as a input source. So I've built a beat on the Deluge. I'm going to play that, and then we're going to see if we can sync up using the outliner category. We're going to see if that'll kind of sync it with the beat that we got. So let's give that a try. So here's our beat, and we've got our outliner. I'm just going to turn it up a little bit here. So we got something. Let's try, well, right off the bat, we don't have anything going. So let's try the amplitude of, say, these three. So as you can hear, syncing up the presses. Basically, I'm using the amplitude of that to control the pulses on the oscillators. So let's just see. Just see if we can get something a little nicer. So there's a quick example of how we can use what the alt is hearing to actually create a gate, basically. We could even play it a little. Pretty cool, right? All right, so for this example, still have it set to audio. So your switch up here, you can put multiple sources in. You could, if you have nothing plugged in and you have it set to audio, it's going to use the internal microphone, which I've turned down at this point because we don't need it. If it's still set to audio and you have something coming in, it uses that audio signal to create a gate. So let's see if that makes a difference. Let's do the same thing we did before. We'll just pop these bad boys on. So it's just, again, kind of pulsing the oscillators here. Let's give it a start. All right, so we're not hearing anything now. So you can see that it's pulsing it. But I find that it actually works better with the speakers. At least when you're just doing a simple beat, because it's just a cleaner signal. Let me see if I can kill. There you go. We're basically doing the same thing. We're now using this, and this is how much release is on that ducking. Not so great. And as you can hear now, I'm bringing the drum machine actually in, and I have it post so I can affect it. Now the drum machine's also being affected because I turned the mix knob up, so it's bringing it in. That's a little more useful if you're doing the audio. So this is how long the release is. I mean, in any case, as you can see, when audio is coming in, I don't find that it works quite as well when it's coming directly in versus through the mic. Now, I am going to note that I think one of the problems here is the more complex your song is, the more complex that it's not going to be as clear to the alt what it's hearing. So like when you have a very defined beat, it's really easy for the alt to using the internal microphone to create that kind of pulsing and create that envelope that works really well and kind of syncs things up. I think the more complex your song is, the more of those holes, so to speak, are being filled. The wider that envelope is, which means the more open the gate's going to be, and it's not going to be as clear. In those situations, I think what I would do is I would probably use a separate CV source, either as a clock or just sending a pulse. So for example, let's try, I'm going to use my Moog DFAM. I'm just going to do a simple 4 on the floor beat, and let's send that into the alt and switch it to CV and see what happens. So now that I've got this plugged in here, basically what I'm doing is I'm sending the envelope from the DFAM as CV signal. So it's the pulses of the beat when the envelope's triggered. So I'm going to run a beat on the DFAM, and then let's see if we can use that as a source. Sure, kind of fast, but why not? All right, so we got our outliner, and let's do a similar test. I mean, that's clean. So obviously, my suggestion would be if you're going to be using an input and you want a clean signal, this is probably the way to go. For example, if I had a very complex song, I could still do a 4 on the floor kick and just send that to the alt separately, and then it's still gonna sync up this way. And as you can see, and this is kind of the only way you could even get an envelope. on this other than using LFOs. So the more I'm opening it up, the more release we're getting. What if we send that to random and then send the random to oscillator 5? So there's CV. The other way that we can use CV. The other way that you can use CV as an input source, you have it set to CV and nothing's plugged in, it's gonna do, this is gonna be your source. So let's, as an example, why don't we just let's set up an ARP at random. Or this. That's a better example. So as you can see, when these notes are triggered, anytime one of those notes are triggered, it's cueing the amplitude of oscillator 1. So it's using the CV generated from the arpeggiator as a modulation source. And again, the amplitude controls the volume, the release controls how quickly it fades out. So there's the outliner for you. Now the last thing that I didn't show in that video is that this thing is, the ALT is completely MIDI capable. And there's actually 3 different MIDI modes. The first MIDI mode, MIDI 1, is basically going to treat these 4 oscillators as a polyphonic synthesizer. So you can play it as a polyphonic synthesizer. The second MIDI mode, MIDI 2, is going to play it as a monosynth. So all 4 voices playing the same note. And then the third MIDI category, MIDI 3, is going to allow you to transpose the different notes. And that is the last mode that we'll check out. So you know what, I should also note that the MIDI, when you have MIDI coming in and you're playing, something that's sending MIDI clock, that's going to lock this, the random, to whatever that MIDI tempo is, and this basically just becomes a clock divider. It's also going to do a hard reset on every pulse sent on both LFO1 and LFO2. So it kind of syncs things up if you're sending MIDI clock as well. All right, so the first MIDI mode, what we're going to do, what you need to do in order to make this work is you need to remember that oscillator 2 is at a lower octave. These 2 oscillators are the same octave, but they're an octave up, and then this one is an octave up on these ones. So when you're going to be playing as a polyphonic synth, the first thing we're going to need to do is you have to get these all up. So now they're all playing the same note, right? So we're all synced there. The other thing to keep in mind is whatever your tonic note is, say I push a C on my keyboard, if this isn't also set to C, it's gonna play whatever the tonic note is. So I have it already set to C. That's gonna keep it easy. We're in C major. I've got the oscillator set up. Now let's see if we can put a sequence in and play it. Let's give it a try. So there you go. And you can hear that it's also playing chords because it's completely polyphonic. Basically what's going to happen is anytime it needs another voice, it's going to trigger one of the other oscillators. That's why you want to make sure they're all at the same note. So you could play up to a 4-note chord. And obviously you still have your filter. And you still have access to all your LFOs and all that kind of stuff. So that's MIDI 1. And again, we could do chords. Pretty awesome. Pretty sweet. So MIDI 2 makes this into a monosynth with 4 voices playing in unison. So now it's just treating it as a monosynth. You can see all voices are playing at the same time. So there's your mono synth. Now, obviously one of the coolest things about a mono synth is the ability to detune things. And to do that, we're going to go to voice 2. Let's go to 3. You can detune your notes, as you can see I'm doing here. So I've got this one detuned a little bit. Let's go to third oscillator. So we're getting that detune effect now. So now I've detuned all my oscillators. Now the way you do that again, hold it for 2 seconds, we're out. So you go into the tonic scale, you hold 2. These are your oscillators, so 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So 2, 3, 4, 5. And I've detuned these 3 off of each other, right? So they're slightly detuned, which is giving you that beating. I'm just going to get out of there by holding it. Now if we play that sequence again. Pretty cool, right? So you got another mono synth. Not bad. Now I know there is a way to, now we got to go back in there and reset our oscillators, make sure we don't have anything set. So again, I hold it. And you can see it lights up to which one you're looking at. So we're looking at this one. That one I already have in tune. This is your scale basically on the right hand side. Click it once, go back out. We're going to go to the next one. And as you can see, this one's detuned a little bit. All right, we're going to bring it back up to even. I'm going to go to the third oscillator. Make sure it's back in tune. And all I'm doing is twisting the knob to get it back up. So think of this as like a meter over on the side here. Boom. So now all the oscillators are in tune again. I'm going to hold it. Boom, we're back in tune. So now the last way to use MIDI is to transpose whatever you're making. So let's, for the sake of that, let's make a chord again. That's kind of nice. Sure. And I'm not messing with any of these things too much because, I mean, what's the point? So let's go to MIDI 3 and I'm going to show you how it transposes that chord all around. So here's our bass configuration. This is just coming out of the alt right now, and I've got MIDI 3 set up so that if I push a different note, it's going to transpose that chord. Simple, right? So that's MIDI 3. MIDI 3 just allows you to transpose whatever it is you have going on the alt by using an external keyboard or an external sequencer. This is probably, to me, the most useful, I would say. The reason being, this would allow me to do chord changes. So if I had an interesting generative pattern or something going on, even if it's in this, C major, it's still in the same scale as my song. Maybe I have a chord progression going in my bass song where, the bass or the guitar or another synthesizer is playing a chord progression. I can copy that chord progression onto a MIDI track, and the generative pattern that the alt is making will follow along. So I could see how that one especially will be useful in getting the alt to kind of play with friends a little bit. There you go. Those are the features that I did not cover in my initial video. Again, if you want to see what the alt's all about, if you want to learn a little more about it, check the video. It's just an overview and unboxing. It'll show you what this thing is, what it was designed for, and just give you a rundown of how it actually all works. All right, so now that I've had the alt for a little over a couple weeks and I've had some time to really dive into it, what are my impressions? What am I thinking at this point? I think the alt is a very unique instrument. instrument. I think it's a very beautiful instrument in a lot of ways. And I think it's an instrument that really, really excels at being performative. It really begs to be manipulated in real time. So it's more of a performance instrument. I think that it's very improv based. It's about putting in a pin, moving a fader, and kind of seeing what happens. You're gonna have to embrace your mistakes with that. I'm still kind of figuring out like how's it gonna fit in my workflow. I haven't had a chance to like build a song around it on its own yet so far. And for most of my time with it so far, I've really kind of treated it as a self-contained unit where you just play with it by yourself. And it does really well with that. It's really, really fun to get lost in. It's really fun to just experiment around and see what happens. I think I'm not so convinced that it plays great with others just yet. I mean, obviously you can use Midi and you can use it just as basically it's just another synth, and that's great because it's so performative, because it's so focused on, you know, experimentation and playing. I think that you can potentially accompany it quite well. So maybe throwing a drum machine in there or reacting to it in real time with other players, maybe playing keyboards or something like that. But because it's more generative and performative, that makes it really hard to replicate your performance. And when I'm building a song, I need to be able to replicate things with regularity. I mean, I need to be able to replicate it so that I know that I'm going to get this performance out of it, whether it's me playing or whether it's, you know, just a sequence that I set up or whatever. Like I need to be able to replicate more or less what I did on a reliable basis for it to be effective at being integrated into other songs. So far, what I've found is because you're going to make mistakes, because it's so performative, the best way to use the ALT that I've found so far, there's, like I said, I'm still pretty new to it, I have a lot to learn, is to just hit record and just have a session. Just record the whole session and then go back later and be like, well, that part was good. That section was good. Maybe I could build something out of that. I've done a couple audio explorations that I've put up. I've done, I think, 2 so far. I'll have more coming. And both of them were kind of created that way. They were part of a bigger session, and it was just like, okay, well, this section is interesting and I could build something around that. One of them is just the ALT straight out, and one of them has a little bit of drums and extra percussion stuff that I added after the fact. I'll link both of those, you know, up in the corner there and all that stuff, so you can check those out if you want to get an idea of what I'm talking about. But again, it was finding a section of that half an hour session that felt like it could be built into something bigger. And I don't know that I could have, you know, built those drums intentionally and then tried to make something on the ALT. I haven't found a comfortable way to do that for myself yet. But again, it's a wonderful instrument to get lost in. It's a wonderful instrument to just play on. And not every instrument that you have has to be something specifically for making songs. Or maybe this is just a new way of making songs that I need to explore a little deeper. I'm not sure yet. There you go. That's what I think of it so far. I still think it's lovely. I really enjoy playing it. And I think most people would too. It's a really pick it up and just play around, play with sound, you know, it's a lot of fun. So if you found this video helpful or informative in any way, please consider subscribing. It's a big help to our channel. Hit that hype button if it was informative, because that'll get that information out to other people. Some new fangled thing that YouTube's doing these days. And, you know, I'll catch you in the next one. I have lots more alt content coming, so I hope you stick around. Thanks again. Ryan out.